still in elegant traveling robes of black. And for a moment, the briefest of moments, his composure falls. He freezes, his eyes widen as if he takes in the sight of his wife talking to his... What is it that I am to him? Good evening, Lucius, Bellatrix says. Floop, Narcissa says, her tone polite, though not exactly warm. Your duties were short-lived this evening, I presume? He recovers very quickly. I have to hand it to him. The immediate shock on his face slides away, to be replaced with a cool, polite welcome. He must have grown accustomed to hiding his emotions over the years. I know that better than anyone. I know that better than I... And who knows that better than I do? Narcissa, he says curtly, striding over and kissing her coolly on the cheek. The insides of my insides are kicked. My insides are kicking each other to death, but I try not to let it show. I'm going to take out a leave. I'm going to take a leave out of Lucius's book. Show no emotion. Emotion leads only to pain. He turns to look at me for a second. His eyes narrow, accusingly. I didn't say anything. I didn't. Please don't look at me like that. Barely a second passes before he turns back to his wife. This is a most unexpected pleasure, he says, his voice with a smooth smile. What do we owe the honor of your presence? My sister invited me round for dinner, she replies. Lucius nods, his face giving nothing away. Where is she now? There's a short pause before she answers him. The Dark Lord called her to him about 5 minutes ago, she says quietly. And Draco too. He had to go with her. She trails off, turning away from him slightly so I can't see her face. Without hesitation, Lucius reaches out and coolly pats her on the shoulder. He's 17 now, Narcissa, he says quietly. He's old enough to make his own decisions, and more than capable of defending himself should the occasion call for it. You need to stop worrying about him unnecessarily. She turns to face him again, her expression a little hard. Of course, she says, her voice very firm. I grew accustomed to the idea of him following in your footsteps long ago. I'm just grateful that he has his aunt and his father to look after him. Lucius doesn't encourage the intimate tone. He just nods, removing his hand from her shoulder, which I find more grateful for than I've ever thought possible. But when he turns to face me, his eyes hard with quick rage, you shouldn't be able to see it. You wouldn't be able to see it if you didn't know what to look for. What is the mudblood doing here? He asks quietly. Narcissa frowns slightly, although he cannot see her. She was just finishing her cleaning work when you came in. She fixes her stare on me behind her husband's back. But I believe she's finished now. Lucius turns to face her. He just looks at me, his face very hard. Well then, I shall return her to her room. His lips barely move as he speaks. I have no wish to be a burden with your presence down here any longer than I have to be. I have no wish to be a burden. I have no wish to be burdened with her presence down here. I have no wish to be burdened with her presence down here any longer than I have to be. I feel cold. I know that he has to say it, but to keep up pretenses, but... Narcissa continues to frown at her husband as he clicks his fingers at me. Come along, mudblood. Hating myself, I do as I'm told, following him as he walks towards the door, out of the room. When we reach the doorway, he turns to his wife once more. Her frown has been smoothed away, and to be replaced with a small, chilly smile. Hating myself, I do as I'm told, following him as he walks towards the door, out of the room. When we reach the doorway, he turns to his wife once more. He frowns as her frown has been smoothed away to be replaced with a small, chilly smile. You will return to the manor, I presume? Lucius drawls. She gives a tiny nod. Just as soon as I'm finished with my wine. His lips form a tiny smile before he turns and strides out of the room. I look at Narcissa, who keeps her cold eyes on mine, granting me the tiniest of nods. I feel like I should say something. What can I say? Thank you for being the one Malfoy who's ever had anything half decent to say to me, since even though I'm sleeping with your husband? I don't think so. So I turn away from Lucius's perfect trophy wife and follow Lucius out of the room. As soon as the door closes behind me, he grips at my arm, almost pulling it from its socket as he drags me down the corridor. I almost whimper in pain, but I force myself to keep quiet. He's angry. No, he's beyond angry. He's furious. He doesn't need to say anything for me to know that. We arrive at my bedroom. In what feels like no time at all. He bangs the door up and throws me into the room, coming in after me and slamming the door behind him. His lips are a thin line and a rock-hard face. Did you speak to her? He asks, his voice shaking with fury. I shiver where I'm standing, trembling with fear. Everything's crashing around me, the knowledge and the terror of what we're doing. I stumble over the words, hardly able to speak. In 2 steps he's right in front of me, his hand drawn back as if thought to slap me, and his eyes blaze with temper. You just answer the damn question! He hisses. I stumble back away from him, falling into the wall, clinging onto the stone to hold myself up. Lucius, I think she knows. I stand, my voice shaking so much that I stretch to repress sobs of terror. I'm surprised I can get the words out. His face goes so pale that it's whiter than white. He looks like he's seen a ghost. He lowers his hands slowly. His eyes are so wide that they look like they belong to a different person altogether. What? He whispers. I cling harder to the stone behind me, taking huge, gulping breaths. Your wife. I think she knows about us. He pauses for a moment, his face completely drained of color, before he grips hard at my shoulders, pulling me away from the wall and shaking me. What did she say to you? He hisses, shaking me so hard it hurts. What? Just what exactly did she say to you? I gulp, trying hard to remember every last word she said to me. She said that she was your wife, I whisper. Looking at... He stops, looking at me incredulously with his fingers bite into my shoulders. And if she did? He lets go of my shoulders, staring at me disbelievingly. She is my wife, in case you'd forgotten. She has been for years. That's not all, you say desperately. She said that Bellatrix hates me, and not just because I'm a mudblood. His eyes narrow, going out of focus for a second as he considered that one. Before long he shakes his head, looking at me again. I highly doubt she meant what you think she did, he says firmly. If she meant that Bellatrix was jealous of you, then that would mean she knows that Bellatrix has reason to be jealous. I stare at him, my mind going into overdrive. But you said that once that Narcissa probably knew what was going on between you and her sister. He rolls his eyes, shaking his head. Perhaps she did. But I've always been certain that she never really knew what was going on. He said with cool, calm confidence. I told you she was probably already knew, because I wanted to dissuade you from getting any ideas about telling her about it after Bellatrix's indiscretion. I feel my lips thin out. And what makes you think that I won't tell her about it now? I asked curiously. What makes you so certain that I didn't just tell her about it now? What makes you so certain that I didn't just tell her about it? He raises his eyebrow at me. Did you? I close my mouth like a trap. He smirks at me triumphantly. No, I thought you didn't, he says quietly. And somehow I'm very much in doubt that you ever will either. No, of course I won't. I keep every secret in the world for him. Everything he ever wanted anybody to know, including his biggest secret of all. How he feels about mudblood. But I add desperately, but she might have just thought that Bellatrix was just angry on her behalf or something. And that's why she hates me. He curls up a lip. He curls up a smile. Bellatrix Lestrange, showing concern for anyone except herself. His smile grows wider. Are we really talking about the same woman? The tiniest of smiles curls my lips involuntarily, and for one magical moment the pair of us share a smile. And it's beautiful, and it's perfect. This is the one moment both of us have smiled together, and it's not part of a game or battle of wills. But his smile disappears almost immediately as he realizes, a little too late, that it's a mudblood he's sharing the joke with. He frowns, and to be safe, I wipe the smile off my own face. A long silence rolls out between us before he eventually speaks again. Narcissa knows Bellatrix better than anyone else in the world, he says quietly. And she believes that if Bellatrix knew that I was having an affair, she would tell her about it immediately. Then why hasn't she already? I whisper. Why hasn't she told her about... why hasn't she told her that you and I... His eyes narrow. I'm treading on dangerous ground here. I'm not allowed to apply any kind of name to what's going on between us. Besides, I don't want to use the word affair. Somehow that word doesn't seem to apply to what's going on between us. Why hasn't Bellatrix already told her sister about you and me? I say eventually. Because she doesn't know, he says exasperatingly. She has her suspicions, but she has no evidence to back those up. The strongest evidence she has was what she saw the night she slashed your wrist, and I wiped that of her memory. Besides, Bellatrix might be half crazy, but she's not stupid. She knows that if she takes me down, I'll drag her down with me. I would tell my wife about her sister's behavior, and how she slept with her own brother-in-law. He pauses, raising his head slightly. Bellatrix knows this. She loves her sister. And she would do anything to keep that knowledge from her. I pause, my brain processing the information. What he's saying makes sense, I suppose, but... Your wife said that Bellatrix has told her that you won't allow any harm to come to me. I say hurriedly because I've still got the guts to say it. And that I should cherish the protection that you provide for me, as it will be the only thing that can save me. That gives him pause. He looks at me for a few moments. What did she mean? The only thing that can save me? I ask quietly. He frowns. I don't know what she meant by that. He seems to give it some thought for a minute or two, before he shakes his head again. She feels sorry for you, nothing more. He says quietly. I know her, despite her beliefs. What has happened to you does not suit too well with her. She's told me time and time again to try to show you mercy, whenever possible.